Hello, welcome to the Amoretti test kitchen. It is a beautiful sunny spring day over here and we're going to make something very festive for Easter. It is a very fun recipe for a hummingbird cake, a classic, a true classic. And we're going to frost it with some very yummy lemon meringue frosting. So let's start off with the cake, and I'm going to start off with the dry ingredients first. We're going to mix all-purpose flour with our premium natural pecan flour because I want the sponge to be a little different and flavor filled, and this pecan flour is so amazing that when you combine it with all-purpose flour or cake flour and make a sponge, it is going to be absolutely amazing, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. So I have here 2 cups of all-purpose flour. You can also use cake flour. I'm going to drop it into a bigger bowl, and I'm going to use our premium pecan flour, and I have 2/3 cup of it, and I'm going to drop it in. To this I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and half a teaspoon of sea salt. I'm going to add half a teaspoon of cinnamon for that classic hummingbird cake taste, and give it a good mix so that everything is combined and uniformly distributed. So you don't want unmixed, streaks of pecan flour in there because it's going to taste weird. Make sure you whisk it really well with no clumps, very fine. That's what we're looking for. Yes, and we're done with this. So the dry ingredients are all mixed, and now I'm going to start with the wet ingredients. I'm going to start with half a cup of sour cream, all room temperature. It is very important that you have all your ingredients at room temperature, especially the eggs and the sour cream. And this cake is not going to be a butter-based sponge. I'm going to do an oil-based one so that it's really moist, and at the same time, even if you refrigerate it, it's not going to go dry. I'm going to add half a cup of whole milk and going to give this a mix. I'm going to start with the eggs. I have here 4 eggs, and I'm going to crack in each and mix. We're going to add 4 eggs, one at a time, and mix it in. To this, I'm going to add 1 cup of flavorless oil. You can use canola oil, vegetable oil, sunflower oil, whichever that doesn't have a taste. Now I'm going to mix it again well. And now comes the magic of this, because for this cake, we are not going to add real pineapple, like chunks of fresh pineapple. Instead, we're going to use our pineapple compound, which is so amazing in flavor, and oh my god, this smells heavenly. You should take a whiff of this because it is like fresh pineapples puree. So instead of adding fresh pineapple again, I'm going to add 2 to 3 tablespoons of our pineapple compound. Also, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of our vanilla bean artisan for that nice flavor of vanilla, which doesn't show through because we have the pineapple already in there, but it helps to bring a nice warmth of flavor to it, and it's kind of like a base flavor. So I always prefer to add vanilla to everything I bake. Even though it has other flavorings, I make sure I add a bit of vanilla too. Very good. We're going to set this aside. So we're going to finish mixing our dry ingredients, and I have 1.5 cups of super fine sugar. So you can use granulated white sugar, but because we are not creaming it, we are not like melting it or anything, I prefer super fine sugar because that mixes well with the dry ingredients and doesn't show through, like it doesn't remain like granulated even after you bake it. And if you sometimes you get like grains in there, that doesn't happen if you use like super fine sugar. Now it's time to add our wet ingredients into our dry. I'm gonna carefully drop in half of it. I can really smell the pineapple in there, and it's actually making my mouth water because it's such a tropical, heavenly flavor, and I love tropical flavor. And with the rest of the wet ingredients, it's so much easier to add it in batches, because if you add the whole thing at once, it's so much more harder to mix it. I've given the batter a good mix and there's no streaks of flour visible anymore. Now I'm going to add half a cup of mashed banana. So this is something that gives the cake a very moist and very soft feel. So it gives you that feel of a banana pecan cake, only because you have this very ripe banana mashed up. So if you have bananas that's like sitting on the counter about to go bad, this is a good way to use it. That is if you're not making banana bread. That is my go-to always, like some choco chip banana bread always is something that I do with leftover bananas. So again, this is another option now, so keep that in mind. We're gonna set this to the side, and now we're gonna take another bowl and drop in 1 cup of chopped pecans, because this is gonna give a little crunch in the sponge, but I still don't want it to sink to the bottom of the sponge. So that's why I'm gonna take 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour or cake flour and drop it in to the nuts and give it a little whisk to coat it completely in flour so that the nuts doesn't sink to the bottom. And now we're gonna add this to our cake batter. So from this point on, it's very important that you don't whisk it, but use a spatula instead. Now gently fold it into the batter. Oh my god, look at this batter coming together. I cannot wait to pop it in the oven, because when it bakes, it just fills your home with that really nice aroma of a very fruity, spicy cake. I'm going to transfer our batter into 3 prepped 6-inch cake tins. I have greased and lined it with parchment paper, or you can use non-stick pans. Today I'm not going to use it. I'm just going to give it a good coating of butter and flour or non-stick spray, and then line it with parchment paper. So you can use maybe 8-inch pans. You can use 2 8-inch pans, or I'm using 3 6-inch pans here right now, or you can use a sheet pan, a 9x13 sheet pan, whichever you prefer. I like to have the cake in layers, so I'm going to use 3 6-inch pans. I'm going to eyeball it, but you can obviously measure it using a kitchen scale when you divide your batter amongst cake tins. I've set the oven preheated at 350, and these cake babies are gonna bake for at least 25 to 30 minutes, or until a skewer inserted in the center comes out clean. I have the batter ready in 3 separate 6-inch cake tins. I'm gonna bake them and come right back with the baked cakes, and I'm gonna give it a tap on the counter to release any air bubbles before baking it. There, we're done, and here we go. While our cakes are baking, let's make the frosting, and I'm going to do a lemon meringue cream cheese frosting. I'm using the lemon meringue artisan for it. It is so amazing. So I'm going to use that to flavor the cream cheese frosting. So let's get making it. I'm going to drop in 1 stick or half a cup or 113 grams of unsalted butter. I'm going to give this a nice whisk and make sure that it is very light, airy and pale. So that's what we're going to look for. And let me tell you about the temperature of the butter that I used. It's slightly below room temperature. It's not really room temperature. It's a little more cold. So that's what I'm looking for here. I don't really want it to be like super room temperature. And when you put your hand, I don't want it to sink into the butter. It's a little more hard. So that's the consistency I'm looking for here. So the butter is whipped, fluffy, light and pale, and now we're going to add the cream cheese. I'm going to add 8 ounces of cream cheese. There we go. It's 1 pack of cream cheese in there, and I'm gonna give it a nice whisk again. So again, when I do cream cheese frosting, I really like my ingredients to be lower than room temperature. So it's not really room temperature, it's a little more cold. So that's how we're gonna do it. And mix away. There we go. So the cream cheese is mixed in and it's looking really fluffy in there. Time to add in powdered sugar. So I'm going to add something in between 2 to 3 cups. So I'm going to give it its own space and see how it comes together there, and stop around 2.5 cups or maximum 3 cups. So that's what we're looking for here. And when you get the right texture, just stop. So that's how I go about my buttercream. You can be very specific, but I like to, you know, be a little flexible here because different brands of cream cheese and butter, they behave differently. So that's why I'm just keeping it 2 to 3 cups. So let's work the magic here and see how it comes together. I'm gonna add it in batches. So in goes almost 3/4 of a cup, and I'm gonna give it a mix. Start very slow because you don't want to end up in a cloud of powdered sugar. Gonna drop in more. So whenever you're making anything in a stand mixer or a hand mixer, like I always say, make sure to scrape down the sides of the bowl and give it a mix again. So the cream cheese frosting is almost done, and now we're gonna add in the lemon meringue artisan, and it's gonna give you that little tang, and it's gonna balance its sweetness so well and pair so well with the hummingbird cake. So I have 1 to 2 tablespoons of lemon meringue artisan, and I'm gonna drop it in. Now I'm gonna mix it and bring it all together. Look at that. It's creamy, smooth, and such a heavenly dream. Okay, I'm gonna give it a little taste test. This kind of feels like a little like having a lemonade too at the same time, and I'm so much in love with this. It's totally divine. You should try it to know how yummy this is. So now we're gonna go check on our cakes and see if it's done, and then it's cooling and frosting time. Stay tuned. So our 3 layers of cake is baked and done, and then now we're gonna let this guy cool because it really needs to be really cool, and maybe even you can refrigerate it overnight because it's easier to cut into the cake, layer it, trim it, and stack it. So it's always better to work with a cold cake. So I'm gonna leave it on the counter or maybe leave it overnight, and then I'm gonna use this as a filling and maybe have some nuts like pecans or fresh pineapple in between the layers and stack it and do like a naked rustic hummingbird cake. And I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do it. So come watch the snippets with me. So if you make this wonderful cake and delicious frosting at home, don't forget to tag us on our social media channels at Amoretti on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and TikTok. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel, comment, and like the video. And Come on, come tell me how you like the cake, and I would love to hear your reviews. You guys have a wonderful Easter and celebrate hard. Thank you.